Hi everybody, welcome to Aimee Nolte Music. Today we're talking about how to spice up your blues progression thanks to the great Oscar Peterson. We're going to take a good look at a way that you can change your 12-bar blues, even from the jazz 12-bar blues, which is more exciting than most blues progressions. Do you remember the Oscar Peterson Boogie Blues Etude? Listen to his progression. Remember we learned a lick from this already? The one that went. Now we're going to talk about his progression underneath, what he's doing. Hear that? To make his blues sound cooler. Let's look at exactly how he does it. Actually, let's listen to it once. I'm singing the bass notes in my head. He almost does the same thing right here. It's at 112 is where this blues chorus starts. Here's a B flat, here's a D. Here's a C, A, D. You hear how that's a little bit different? That 2 chord is totally different too. Let's look at what they are. I'm excited to show you. Let me just play it for you really slowly so you can hear it. Let me bring you in. Let's do this together. All right, the first thing we'll do is just talk about it a little bit. I wrote it out for you. Call it the Oscar Peterson Blues Variation. Oscar Peterson's not the only person to ever play with this progression. Lots of jazz pianists were messing with the blues progression, trying to make it more interesting, more tasty sounding, especially through the 30s and 40s. So you can find this out there in lots of places, but I like that Oscar Peterson plays it in something that you and I have already been studying, these etudes. So we start with an F chord, not even necessarily an F7 chord, because when he brings the E flat in right here, then it definitely becomes an F7 chord, so it kind of sounds... So we've got this nice motion from the bass note coming from an F to an E flat to a D flat. Isn't that cool? Can you hear how nice that sounds? And then he keeps the D in the bass, but he plays it twice, and another time he's got a B in the bass, so I don't know which he thought about it. Like maybe he thought about it as a D diminished, but he probably thought about it as a B diminished, I would imagine, because here comes a C for the bass for the F. So actually, I think we'll look what I can do. Ha! Let's think about that like a B diminished chord. Now we've got a 2-5 back to F7. Here we are at B flat. And let's just make that a B flat 7. I don't know if we hear that from him the whole time, but it's the blues, so that's definitely a B flat 7 chord. And then another B diminished chord. Now this is where the real variation happens, with just this one little chord, because a lot of times in a jazz blues, almost all the time actually, we go from an F7 to a D7. But this one little chord makes the difference. Listen how it sounds. Let's hear it again. Let me back up to here. that make all the difference. There's some different chord tones in A7 that just make your ear perk up for a second and think, oh, that was just a nice little change before you get to the D7, which is actually pretty normal. We'll talk about those chord tones in a second, but let's keep going. Then he just plays a G7 altered here, and actually I would call it a G13 with a flat 5. Those are the main notes that I hear in his chord, like that, and I'll show them to you. And then a C7, and then just a normal turnaround. So let's hear it again. A very simple way to make it through this progression is just to use your left hand and play really simply. F, F7 with an E flat on the bottom, D on the bottom and a B flat chord, B diminished, an F with a C on the bottom, and now we have a 2-5 to F, I'm just playing everything very simple in root position. B diminished. Here's an F with a C on the bottom. And here's an A7. And here's a D7. And then he's got a G7, which is really altered. But for now, let's first play like that, and then we're gonna need the 13, the 7, and for now, let's just play, we'll play that, and then we'll give the alterations right up here. The alterations that are important are the 3rd and the 7, and the 13, and the flat 5. Okay. I think he also plays the 9 in there. And then C7. And then F, D7, G minor, C7. Okay? That's just the first way you should probably walk through it. Is really easy in root position, just like that. And you know, Oscar's playing all this kind of thing with his left hand. When you play stride piano, you're playing all the roots, and you're playing, some of these chords sound pretty boring because you're kind of doing the more interesting things with your right hand, and his right hand is so interesting. But let's talk about that part in the progression I mentioned where the interesting thing can happen, and that is right here on this A7. So we're going to start here. I'm going to play a few melodic lines and see what notes sound really good to land on when you get to that A7 chord. Here it comes. That's a pretty standard kind of line. See that? Over the F chord that has a C on the bottom. And then I land on the flat 9 of this A7 chord. And then the 3 of the D7 chord. That's a good line. I would probably play it an octave higher, but I'd like to keep my hands close and right on camera for you. Let's try another one. So that one, we've landed on the flat 9 of the A7 chord. This time, let's try for something different. Okay, so we go back to that 4 chord. I think the E natural is a really nice note to land on that A7 chord. Yeah. That time I landed on the E. I think the E is really unexpected. If you land on that E note, I think that's going to make people's ears perk right up. That time we landed on the third. That was great too. I also played a nice little diminished idea over that diminished chord. See how nicely those notes work? Sometime I'll do a whole video about that, but if you just keep those notes in your head over the B diminished chord, it's really nice. And we landed on the third. I love that. We could also land on the root or the seventh. Those would sound good as well. So that time I kept the A really strong through the F chord with the C on the bottom to the A7 chord. Something like that. So the root sounded really nice too. Now the next thing he does is he goes to this G7 altered chord, or a G13 flat 5 chord. He kind of plays aggressively over that chord. Let's listen to how Oscar played over that chord. Here it comes. Very scalular. And aggressively, didn't he? That was really aggressive. I mean, he played some kind of a whole tone scale. Something like that. I'll show you what that looks like. The notes in the G whole tone scale look like that. So sometimes, often in Oscar Peterson's playing, just for effect, and because he hears it in his amazing brain, he'll launch into some, great big scalular idea like that. Something like that. He did something close to that. That's a good one. Why don't we stick with that? I'm not going to get it exactly because it would take me a little bit of time, but let's start with that. We've got a tritone in G major. And we just play a whole tone scale down, but this little triplet gives it a nice start. 1. You can practice that. Those are just 16th notes. But he plays nice and aggressively over that G7 altered chord. And then the rest of it is just normal blues. Nothing really crazy about it. Let's listen one more time. Here, on this time through, he doesn't play it altered, but the next time through, he does. Here it comes again. It's helpful to sing these bass notes. All right, very good. Thank you for watching Aimee Nolte Music today and studying more Oscar Peterson with me. I think that's really fun. I love to play variations on the blues, and this is a great one. Tell me if you have a good time with it, and please share with your friends. Click the subscribe button up in the corner. That way you don't miss any of my videos. And I'll see you next time on Aimee Nolte Music.